Hi, ninth grade English. Hope you're doing all right. We've reached the last module for this year. So kudos to you for making it this far. You have one more little section to go, and then you'll be done with the content for ninth grade English, as abbreviated as it may seem. On the screen that you see right now is the Odyssey Module 6 answer key. Okay, so let's go over the answer key. For Module 6, there are two different sections here, and then we will get into the directions for module 7 rather, and there's also going to be a critique Mr. Good document where you give me a grade for the year based on my ability to reach out to you, and it's going to be some appropriate feedback. And I know it's been a tough go of it this year, so hopefully you'll give me some honest feedback so I can build upon what has happened this year, and we can move forward. I can move forward, and you can move forward into next school year with a little more knowledge than we started with this year. So looking at the Odyssey Module 6 answer key, the test of the Great Bow, right here. Number 1, describe the test that Penelope comes up with for the suitors. Remember, she is awaiting the arrival of her husband, Odysseus, and she's informed that Odysseus is in Ithaca, but she's not aware of who exactly he is just yet. So she has to come up with a test for someone to prove their worth to her. And she says, "Well, whoever can do this, I will wed, and they will become king." So the test is found on 932. There's two different instances where it's mentioned. The first says that on page 932, the test involves stringing Odysseus's huge bow, an impossible feat for anyone except Odysseus himself. So the first part is that a suitor or someone who wishes to try has to string the bow of Odysseus. And any hunter out there knows that stringing a bow is not necessarily an easy task. Stringing the bow of an epic hero is an epic task. So only Odysseus could do this, and she knows that. And the second part of the test is right here. Bend it and string it if you can. Who sends an arrow through iron axe-held sockets, 12 in line? I join my life with his and leave this place, my home, my rich and beautiful house forever. So, just so you can understand what an axe-held socket is, poorly illustrated, but illustrated nonetheless. Look at your screen. Here's what an axe would look like if it were stuck into the floor upside down, a battle axe. So we have a handle, right? Again, poorly illustrated, I know. And then we'd have these two, right? This way. Okay. So that'd be upside down. And then at the bottom, the handle, have something like this. This right here is an axe held socket. Okay. So the whole purpose is for an arrow to be shot through that little hole. Now, not just one, not just two, not just six, 12. 12 of them. So 12 are going to be stacked up in line, and whoever strings the bow will then have to shoot an arrow through 12 of them. That's a task for an epic hero. That's not a task for just any suitor, anybody wishing to be with Penelope. So Odysseus, who's again disguised as a beggar, is going to be the only one who can do this. And you can imagine the shock and awe that occurs when Odysseus actually performs this task, because he looks like this decrepit old man. And when he actually does this thing that no one else can do, these strong, muscle-bound dudes can't do that. Well, they're going to be taken aback a little bit, and he slaughters them after that. Number 2, who helps Odysseus destroy the suitors? How do they accomplish this? So, 934, Eumaeus, the swineherd, hands Odysseus the bow and tells the nurse to retire, leave, with Penelope and the maids in the family chambers and to bolt the doors. Odysseus had earlier told his son Telemachus to remove the suitors' weapons from the great hall. Now he takes the bow. He strings the bow, and he takes some time to tap on it and see if there's any insect holes that have been bored in it over time, because again, he hasn't touched it for 2 decades. And he strings the bow, and then he shoots those arrows, or one arrow through those axe held sockets. And this shows us right here. Number 3, who wins the test? On page 936, now flashed arrow from twanging bow, clean as a whistle, through every socket ring, and graze not one, the thud with heavy brazen head beyond. So he shoots that arrow through 12 of those axle sockets. And as all those suitors watch him do this, they watch him string the bow, they watch him make his shot, they watch his shot go through the axle sockets, and then they're following that arrow going across the room through those axle sockets. And you can imagine their heads going one way, that way. And then they look back, and then there is Odysseus standing there looking like Odysseus, not looking like a beggar anymore. So his costume has disappeared. The costume that Athena granted him, the disguise that Athena granted him, he doesn't look the same anymore. He looks like the king. And he takes his seat at the throne with his son next to him. And you can imagine the climax here, because that's what this is. This is the climax of the whole story. He conquers 2 worlds. He conquers the unknown like an epic hero would. He enters the unknown. He goes through that apotheosis, and he comes back, and he takes back what is rightfully his. And he does it, in this case, rather violently. So he wins the test, and the next section is death at the palace. And here's what he does to those people who've been living by their own rules, not his wife's. They've been making the rules when he's been gone. And they've been treating everybody pretty poorly. Death at the palace. So here's where he gets his vengeance. Who is Apollo, and why does Odysseus pray to him? On page 938, Odysseus prays to Apollo because this particular day is one of the gods' feast days. Also, Apollo is the god of archery. Odysseus is about to take his bow, take a bunch of arrows, and slaughter these suitors. He wants to make sure his shots are true and straight. Again, climactic event. Number 5. Which suitor did Odysseus want to kill first? Why? Where was he shot? He drew up on page 938. He drew to his first the cruel head of an arrow for Antinous, who is kind of like the ringleader of all the suitors. He's the one that had probably the best shot of stringing the bow and shooting the arrows, but he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. Shooting the arrow rather through the axle sockets. So the first arrow is for Antinous. Just as the young man leaned to lift his, that's a typo, Mr. Green, come on, leaned to lift his beautiful drinking cup. Me. And on page 938 right here, Odysseus's arrow hit Antinous, under the chin and punched up to the feathers through his throat. So Odysseus makes quick and violent work of the leader. And the doors are bolted and the weapons are gone. The only people that have weapons are Telemachus and Odysseus. Remember, there's all those battle axes laying around. Well, they're stuck into the floor. But these suitors are not they're not well armed. Okay, so it's a slaughter. Odysseus regains what is his only after he exterminates the enemy. And the enemy here are the people who have been running amok on his land and his property, trying to get with his wife. And it's been a mess here. And he is reclaiming what is his. Number 6, where are all the weapons belonging to the suitors? On page 934, it said Odysseus had earlier told Telemachus to remove the suitors' weapons from the great hall, and now he takes the bow. Okay, so they've been hidden. They've been taken from the great hall, and Odysseus really demonstrates that he's in charge, and he's back with a vengeance, and it is his land. He can't rule gently right now. He has to rule with force, and that's too bad for the suitors. But they've been making their own rules; they haven't been following his. So he this is his first iteration when he returns of, hey, I'm in charge now, and you guys have been doing wrong for so long, and he gets rid of them, and he eliminates their presence. So this is a very, very climactic event. So after these 2 sections happen, the test of the great bow and death at the palace, we have Odysseus and Penelope sort of reconnecting. And Penelope is sort of hesitant at first, but she finds a way for Odysseus to prove himself. Okay, and that's what we're going to find out in Module 7, the last module of this year, of this entire academic school year, book 23 for Homer's Odyssey. So the module is right here. The quick write, I changed a little bit. It's about perspective. You guys have a unique perspective, so please provide that below. You've been through a lot. I've been through a lot. But we've seen things differently throughout these last 7 or 8 weeks here. What connections, the prompt, what connections can you make between what Odysseus went through in his journey and what you've gone through in your life? Explain in a short paragraph. It can be your immediate life right now, what you've been going through for the last 2 months, 3 months almost, or it can be, in general, what you've gone through in your entire life. But I think the path of an epic hero resembles a lot of different components, resemble what we go through in life too. Now, we're not epic heroes. Some of us are heroic. Some of us may consider ourselves to be epic. However, we're not epic heroes because we don't go through all of these different pieces and come back to conquer both the unknown and the ordinary world in the same kind of way. We go through some of those traits, but we don't go through all of them. But there's a lot that is mirrored in our life. And I think that's important to recognize. What connections can you make between the world of Odysseus and the life of Odysseus and our own lives? And I think that's important to see, especially when we look at literature through that perspective, because having that perspective where we're able to connect our life to the life of literary importance is very important. That is what makes literature matter. I've said that a whole bunch of times this year. When we make personal connections with what we're reading in an English class, it becomes meaningful. This is a personal connection we can try to make. Okay. The read section, Odysseus and Penelope, is right here. It's the PDF version from the textbook. That PDF version looks like this. There it is, Odysseus and Penelope. Don't forget to read the italicized portion up here. It's a couple pages. Third, there's Penelope weaving on her loom. See the suitors trying to get with her. And then we have a poem here about Ithaca, okay, which is kind of symbolic. It's a good read. Here you have the YouTube video of the teacher explaining the Odysseus and Penelope text here, and the study guide is right here. I gave you the page numbers again. Try to use direct quotes. Many of you have been doing that. If you can't figure the direct quotes out, so be it, but try to do that. And the summaries down here, as well as the terms and the content and the Quizlet links, the dictionary.com link right here. Module 7 is book 23 if you're using the Odyssey summaries, okay? So that's module 7. The other piece that you're going to see here, I mentioned before that I give you grades all year long. Some are different than others. Obviously, the last couple of months here have been way different than anything you've experienced before. For better, for worse, I tried to make it as manageable as possible. I hope I've done that. If I haven't, not many people have reached out to me to allow me to help you in a different way. So I'm assuming what I'm doing is working. And from the submission rate, which is about 98% of you submitting what you need to submit on time, or at some point in time submitting it, that's excellent. And the content you're providing is relatively accurate. Not all of it's good, but it's relatively accurate in general. I think that means to me that the way I've approached this has been a little bit beneficial for you. Obviously, there's no replacing you being in class and having that interaction piece and doing things that are different than just sit, read, watch, react. Okay? Because you know as well as I that when we're in class, it's a much more engaging experience. There's no substitution for that, and I apologize for that. There's very little we can do about that. So think about how things went this year. And here is what there's going to be a link to. I would like you to fill this out. This is totally anonymous unless you want to put your name on it. But it's essentially 4 or 5 questions. So here's what it says. Critique Mr. Good. What a long, strange trip it's been. Absolutely, it has. Each year, I choose to have students critique my work throughout the year. Now it's your chance to provide some input from me to use in future years when teaching this course. Be honest, this will not influence your grade in any way, as its sole purpose is to help me in the future. All right, I use this every single year so that I can gauge what worked and what didn't, what the interest level is and what the interest level isn't in different areas. Okay. So the bottom line is I have administrators that come into my room a handful of times a year, and they grade me, and they grade me based on my ability, my knowledge, my engagement, and my pedagogical skills. And right here, I'm allowing you to do the same thing because you guys interact with me on a much more frequent basis than my administrators do. And that's the way it should be. So I should be asking you for that feedback. Okay. And I do in a classroom setting, but here it's actually charted for me. So distinguished, proficient, needs improvement, or failing. You rank me and my ability, my teaching ability, as one of those. Okay. So I'm either one of the best, average to above average. I have lots of areas to work on, or I am not meeting the needs of the majority of students. Be honest. Tell me which one you think I fall under. Explain your answer choice for that choice right here for number one. Explain your choice here. Explain your favorite experience in class or online, either one. Explain your least favorite experience in class or online, either one. And then the last one, it's the end of the year, so now's your last chance to provide Mr. Good, me, with any words of wisdom or input you may have about the course. Enter such information below. If you really think that you had a good experience and things worked well, specifically one or two items, list them here and tell me why. If you think that there are things that didn't work well, list them here, tell me why. Be honest with me, okay? Be open with me. I'm honest and open with you. Please be so with me, okay? This is what matters to me, okay? You feeling not a water skiing elephant. That doesn't matter to me. But you filling out some feedback and getting it to me matters a lot because that helps me grow as a teacher. I hope that I've helped you grow as a student. I believe I have, even though it's been a very unique challenge. However, this is going to help me gauge where my skills are currently and how I can address this moving forward. Okay, so be honest. I look forward to some positive, some negative, and some words of wisdom. Anything, any parting words, I guess you have for me this year. Okay, so that's going to be provided for you. I would like you to fill that out and submit that. Again, it's anonymous. Your name's not attached. You will see all of this under classwork under module 7. And I believe that's it for the content this year. I will say that it's it's been a roller coaster ride. I sincerely miss being in a brick and mortar setting. I also sincerely hope that we're back to that in some way, shape, or form next year. And it's been great getting to know all of you. Although over the last 2 months, it's been relatively limited in contact, but that's sort of the nature of the beast here. So moving forward, if we're back in a brick and mortar setting next year, and you want to stop in, say hi, give me some feedback, or touch base, feel free. You know where to find me. I will be there. And if you ever need anything, you know where to reach out. Okay. So it's been a wonderful year as far as getting to know each and every one of you as best I could. And my apologies for the way it worked out. I know there's nothing anybody can really do about it, but an interesting experience nonetheless. Okay. Typically on the last day of school, I would give you a handshake as you exit after your final exam. But lucky for you, there's no final exam, and we're not supposed to do handshakes. So it's a virtual fist bump for everybody. Okay. So module 7, it's going to be due midnight. Oops, that's not right. It is going to be due midnight, June 6th, I believe is the date. That may be changed. It might be June 5th, but it's going to be due in a week, midnight. Okay, so get it done when you can get it done. Get that critique done, and enjoy your time off. And I hope to see you next year. I sincerely do. Be well.